Hi there, my name is Eric Stern and I wanted to show you my Arabic tuned accordion. And I'll get into the whys and the wherefore, but I actually wanted to start with a hows rather than have that be 5 minutes into the video. So it's a hybrid, so you can play just your regular accordion songs. But you can also play Arabic music. I don't know if you can hear that quarter tone there. So very simply, the way it works is that on the push of the B, you get a B half flat. On the push of the E, you get an E half flat. And on the push of the A flat, all the way down here, you get an A half flat. And when I say push, I mean sort of like a button accordion when you push this way. That's really the hows. Now, it's a little more complicated because and I'll explain this in a little bit, but because of the different maqam, some of the E's and the B's are a little higher or lower, the E half flat. So on this register, everything's a little lower, so I can play a maqam like Sabah. On this register, it's a little higher, and that's more for Rast or something like that. And if you can't exactly hear that, that's all right. It's microtones. But after a while, if you play this music, you do hear that. The hows. What I did was I took, and you can see on the internet how to do this thing. Where I found it was on a Melodian video of taking a reed, and you put solder on it, and you put it on the outside, and then you can continue to tune it either with a filing just the solder, or with your soldering iron. I would not recommend filing the reeds just for the tuning with no solder at all. I have done that when I first started. Part of the reason I'm making this video was because none of this stuff was on the internet, and I still can't find it, at least in English. So anyway, I used a file because that's how I learned how to tune accordions, but for more fine tuning, if you tune it that way, it does weaken the reed. So I really recommend soldering it, and I really recommend getting an old beater accordion if you're going to do this work yourself, and mess around with that first and practice on it first. I mean, really just get something from Goodwill for $20, take out the reed blocks. But that's how you do it. So I have another accordion. But anyway, this is, okay, here's some more things. Again, like I said, this is really a hybrid. Now, some people, they make it so that on the pull of, let's say, the B, it's half flat, while it's half flat on the push of the E. I don't like that, because then if you're playing something Western, you can never just have that E and that B. It's always half flat. The reasoning for doing that is that you don't want to like be all the way out here and then not be able to push in. So that's the reasoning for that. I've actually never had a problem with that. I really feel like with this tuning and where the notes are, I'll show you another accordion in a minute, but where the notes are, they're in the best place. So you can play things in Western tuning. You just have to pay attention to the direction of the bellows. And again, if you play a diatonic or any kind of button accordion where things change with the direction, that's pretty common practice. So here's an example of just playing a jazz song. Here, I'll use this register. And what you notice is sometimes I do have to jump up to this octave. So I have this whole octave up here, it's just normal. So if I'm getting too far out and I know that I'm going to be pushing in, it's going to sound weird, then I just jump up to this octave. You get used to it after a while. Again, and if this music is new to you, I would recommend, so the accordion sort of came into the golden age of Arabic music, around the beginning of the 20th century, where in Egypt at least, and maybe elsewhere. And please, if you know more about this, talk about it in the comments. If you know of a better way to do this, please talk about it in the comments. So there was a sort of hybridization between Western instruments and Middle Eastern, Egyptian, Lebanese, Syrian modalities, let's say, not in the music sense of modes, but just it's just music. There was a hybridization, basically. So the accordion was introduced, and at first it was just played, it didn't have those quarter tones, but then someone figured it out. And obviously it's an approximation. So sort of the instrument par excellence with maqam music. So this is music that has these microtonalities. It's made of, I'll try to be brief. It's not exactly scales, but it's sort of like like 4 notes and then joined to like 4 other notes. They're called lower gins and upper gins. And it's sort of like if you ever, when you were a kid, had like dolls or those things where you can put like the pants on a guy and then put a different shirt on and then different hat. It's kind of like that, and then but the clothes have to look tasteful. And so this is the instrument par excellence with maqams. This is an oud, and even though someone drew on frets, there are no frets on this. And in certain maqams, let's just talk about the E half flat and the B half flat. Those are higher. So this is Rast. Versus something like Beati. So my E half flat is there. Versus there's Rast. So that the accordion can only be an approximation, but if you have different registers tuned to different shadings of the maqam, that really will help with that alignment. So here's one more way to do it, and I want to say also, obviously E half flat, B half flat, and A half flat are not the only notes that are half flat, and you could go further, but that for the music I play, now we're not talking about Turkish music, that's a whole other animal, but for Arabic music, that takes care of I think 90% of the songs, and the other percent, if it's a F sharp half flat, which does appear, I won't play the melody. A lot of times you're just doing fifths anyway, comping. So if there's something, and that's half flat, I'll just go, and another instrument can take that in the orchestra. So this accordion, here's a whole other way of doing this, has 4 different registers that I can play. And some accordions, you can't play all the registers, even though they're there, because there'll be this musette register, but you can't actually, you don't have a switch to play both things of the musette. You don't usually have a switch to play the one that's tuned off from 0. This is a Crucianelli, and I can play all the registers. So what I did with this one is 2 of the registers are absolutely normal. So that is an E both ways. So I can, I don't have to worry when I'm soloing. so I can just go about my business and play that when I need to in a Western setting. And a lot of Arabic music, you're not always playing those quarter tones. However, I made the other two registers half flat. Now with this one, I put the B half flat down there, and I put the A half flat up here. It doesn't work as well for me. I find that I'm jumping around if I do a song like Zaina. Then I've got to go. And jump up there and everything. So this is the second accordion that I did that way. The other one is the third one. So I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. But anyway, I just wanted to show you so that you can see that you can have an accordion. Now the problem or the difference about this is that I don't have those shadings. And I suppose I could make it, so I've got it quarter tone tuned. Quarter tone is an approximation. That's just how we talk about it. But I've got the tuning on two registers here. So I suppose I could make one register a little flatter and the other register a little sharper. But then I like playing two registers together, and I have more power that way. So I think that's all there is to say about it. This one I like because, again, I have all the registers. Now here, okay, one more thing. Even though those registers are slightly different, when you play them all together, it somehow melds together nicely. And I wish I knew exactly how or why that is. Probably the musette tunings are pulling things up a little bit. So here's with all the tunings. That's the song Hebina by Farid Al-Atrash. So yes, when you play full on, your master switch, that seems to work well. One other thing, or a couple other things to talk about. I feel like I keep saying one other thing, so the next thing to talk about. A lot of times, this is more stylistic, and I won't get too much into that, but you're not playing chords too much in Arabic music. You're playing open fifths in the left hand, and sometimes you can play octaves. I tended to do the melody line in the left hand. Didn't work out too well, but anyway, you can play fifths with either register. The one other thing I'd say is when I tuned these with the soldering, it's never really half flat, so you have to figure that out. The higher ones are sort of 30 cents offset, and the lower ones are maybe 40 or a little bit more. You kind of use your ear, or ask a friend. I did ask people. I do have lots of relationships with Arabic musicians that I play with, but most people now are playing keyboards, so people don't really know. So, like I said, if you know, sometimes people put the E half flat on this E flat here, and again, there's all different ways of doing it. Sometimes people put it on the pull and the push, and I suppose you could just do it on the pull versus the push. The push is what I'm used to, and but that's it. That's how I do it. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I'll try to answer them. And thank you so much.